funding that we might receive from the HIV testing could be used to go back into the juvenile facility to take care of the cost of doing the dog therapy program so that it will benefit the children.
Could you explain that program?
The dog therapy? Oh, which one?
Yeah, the dog therapy. DOL?
Sorry?
DOG.
DOG.
Dog. Can you explain that one what that is? I'm not sure what that is.
I can get you some information on it. It's Mrs. LaFlouche is a retired RN nurse who has a program that she uses some with Operation Shoestring. It's where they bring in the dogs and they're taught to train to take care. They're able to do some therapy. It's centered around whatever the issues that a child is having, and they're able to get the child to open up a little bit more and to deal with it and to interact with the dogs. These are trained, registered dogs that have been certified by the FBI and other agencies of therapeutic trained dogs, just like the CNI dogs and others, but they work very closely with children on that.
Okay, Mr. Stokes.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mrs. Stallworth?
Yes, sir.
And Mr. Sims,
Yes.
I take the hats off to you. You have a hard job. I won't say that on the front end. I think the major problem, this is not the only problem, you have so many homes without fathers, these young boys doing the wrong things, thinking to make them be grown and those kind of things. Then you have lack of good role models, and then you just have some solid mothers. And you got to try to find some kind of thing. I see them all the time. I know a little kid was in the church singing and doing all the right things. Then all of a sudden, the father named mother got issues. Now he's on the street smoking blunts. And you see that a lot of these kids have drug problems. You try to get them with role models of good people, organizations, and you have predators, homosexuals that act like they want to help the kids, then abusing the kids. So, you know, we have a major, major problem. But I don't want you to lump, because all the kids come in not bad, and some come from good homes, but if you start lumping all of them, then you'll put the bad kids with the wrong kids, and that's even a major, major problem. Now, what can we do?
Well, let me address that, and I'm going to let Mr. Sims also address it. We don't lump them all together. We have to receive whatever children are coming in. We try to, each child receive an individual counselor. We look at every case individually. If a child does not need to be in the facility, then they're not held in the facility. But by the same token, when a child comes in, that child may have some underlying issues, and we are able to address those by receiving and referring them to all of our agencies to try to get what is needed in that life of that child. We have a problem with getting mentors, good mentors. We have a problem with fatherhood initiative programs. I would agree. We have a problem with, I see it in the church that I pastor for over 30-some years. We have problems all the way around. But we're trying to address the whole family. One of the big problems of supervisor is that we've applied and would have helped us if we could have got family court. We did not receive that. We're still applying, trying to get a family court. That will hold the parents and others more accountable.
What would it take? When you said apply, you wanted a grant for a family court?
Right.
How much was the grant? How much would it take for a family court to be implemented?
I think that was about a $250,000 grant.
Okay. All right. Now, we'll get that later, because I know others on stage. What about us going to the schools before they're out? And I'm just talking the city. I'm not talking the rural, and I'm learning more about the rural, because so many of these young people, the bad kids in the school, tend to influence the good kid. I'm talking about you have a good kid that's doing the right thing, but he wants to fit in so badly till he start following a bad kid. So what about us going to the schools and talking to not to the whole auditorium where you know they sleep, but to the individual classes?
We're partnering with the schools. We're trying to get a better working relationship. Like I said, we have the Expo School in our facility. We've also just met with JPD to try to deal with some of the issues that we're having. Just last week we had a meeting, and then this week we are scheduled to kick off with their quality life officers, who will be coming to us working out of our facility in conjunction with the new class that's graduating. That they will help us and respond to try to curtail some of the bad elements and try to separate. Again, fixing the problem of parenting is going to take long range. One of the problems we have to admit to the face, we are receiving products of children now that were born by teenagers. So it's very easy for a 26-year-old now to be a grandmother who receive those skills of how to parent, who grandmothers that are great-grandmothers and great-great-grandmothers who are just beat down and tired because they've done everything they can to get the others out. So we got a problem. The church has to step up, the community has to step up, and we need everybody on the same page working together to fix the problem. And you all have been very supportive of coming, and when we've come and asked for grants and asked for help for things, and it's just overbearing, but Mr. Sims wanted to address.
I want to say thank you, because I know others will ask questions. Thank you, Mr. President.
We'll go to Ms. Calhoun, and then we'll go to Mr. Sims, and then we'll wrap this up. Go ahead, Ms. Calhoun.
You mentioned that you have a program to boost young girls' self-esteem.
Yes, ma'am.
Do you have a program for the males? It's needed.
Mr. Bryant just asked me that. We're trying to get a program. What we're trying to do, what we was going to do with that, also with the wrap around the game court and the parenting class, is to address those concerns and issues. We know that there's a problem. We know that there's a great problem with the males. We're trying to find some help with that. And a lot of times it's finding the right volunteers who will give of their time, because we're not able to pay people. It's just like a program we have right now. Mr. Sims is working with us to provide GED for students, and he can provide us the money to buy the equipment. We have nothing to pay the staff, so we're going to have to rely on volunteers. He also met with me last week in trying to provide some additional probation officer program for 1 year funding, and we have to try to find some other things to do to address it. But to answer you, we're trying to find a good program. There is a fatherhood initiative program. I saw Mr. Solly today, who has a good program, and we need to institute that within our facility. Jessica is going out for everything that we possibly can to try to well address the issues but we do have a big problem with males.
Okay, Mr. Sims.
Yes, I would really like to take the time just to say on behalf of the Department of Public Safety, thank you guys for supporting these programs that we have in place. We've done a lot of assessment on Hill and Young, and I can say that things are improving with staff there, especially with the new tracking system. And over the years, you had a lot of violations, but when we look at those violations and actually came into those files and looked at those violations, it was more of a human error. So we're hoping this will correct some of the issues. I think now we identified only like 11 issues that we are concerned about, but they're more DHS issues about leaving the kids in the detention center. When I came in there, I used to see a lot of young females in there that were being held, but they were in DHS custody, and there was no place to put them. That's when we came with the concept with the Hope Home for runaway girls. Our goal is to do one for the males. With the funding being reduced on the federal side, we have less funds to work with. But one of our goals that we want to do with our males, especially what we're seeing now, we're seeing a lot of young males out there committing crimes, whether murder, armed robbery, things like that. We want to assign the court a probation officer to follow up on these kids, to track these kids throughout the day. Right now you have counselors working, but they can't follow up and track these kids. We got some individuals that need to be tracked and monitored regularly, and the GPS system is not working. I can speak from experience, from mentoring a kid in the detention center. Now he's facing over 40 years in prison right now. I worked with him, I talked with him, and I did everything I possibly could, but not having a father in the house, having a mother strung on drugs, there was only so much I could do. What I find now is a lot of, in our black communities, in our black churches, our churches don't want to step up. They don't want to help out. They want to know what's in it for them. And those are the kind of concerns I have. I'm not saying all, but there are a lot out there. We've had mentoring programs. We fund a lot of different type of programs throughout the state. And I think it's time for the community and for our black leaders and for our churches to step up in these communities, because 8% of Hines County and Jackson are minorities going into the system. They're going into the detention center, whether we want to recognize it or not. But the feds, we also keep numbers on there. But the one thing that I want to stress to you is I really appreciate the hard work that you guys have done in supporting these programs. Like I said, we're looking at starting a GED program, also funding a position for probation officer, and also opening up a Hope Home for boys also. So I just want to thank you for that.
Okay. We really appreciate the update. Some of the issues kind of eye-opening as it relates to the increase in criminal activity. And we'll take that to heart. And I hope that we can get a copy of some of the information that you gave us as it relates to especially gangs in the county. I think it's something that every supervisor will benefit from knowing what type of information is out there. Because at one particular point there was a lull that went down, and now it's back apparently on the rise. So we appreciate that. And unless there's any other questions from any other board member,
Mr. President, I have one other thing that I would like to present you for, actually related to Henry Young.
okay.
And I want
the Mississippi State Department of Health has been given a grant, I understand, to perform certain testing, and they have requested that Henry Young participate as a sub-grantee with regard to testing for STD and HIV. They're actually going to provide kits and reimburse the county $10 per kit, so to speak. The board has already authorized a similar agreement with the Sheriff's Department, and at this time we're requesting authority to do so with Henry Young, and contracting in substantially the same format.
Okay, what's the pleasure of the board?
So moved.
It's been moved. Is there a second? It's been moved and properly second. All those in favor of?
Discussion, Mr. President.
Mr. Stokes?
I guess my major concern is we got to make sure we keep these names and we don't publicize the information we get back. But it's scary, but it's true because I see it every day in the neighborhood I live in. A lot of these young people have AIDS.
Yes, sir.
And I think now, I guess my concern, my question is, if they find out that these young people have AIDS, because a lot of them just spread it on. They have it, they mad at the world, and they're going to find others to give AIDS to. What are we going to do if you find that they have AIDS and make sure that they understand they can't just go out and start giving it to others?
Mr. Stokes, what happens is that if this is a swab test that we'll be doing, we get a report in about 30 minutes and we contact the state health department. We uphold the confidentiality of every youth that there is, just like we're doing on the STD testing that we've been doing now for about 2 or 3 years. That information is only shared with the if they're in the facility when the tests come back, it's given to the nurse. But we also share that information with Crossroad. The state health department provides counseling and therapy and treatment, and they try to do an assessment, and they in turn also try to identify who their partners are and get those persons in that they are treated as well, and it's done on the strictest of confidential. Just like all the other matters of youth court, they are very confidential persons who come down and actually sign a confidentiality statement. We don't release any information on children. And that's one of the reasons we wanted to bring that up today, is to ask also that you'll come down and share with us, that you may see the whole process and that better understand what we're doing and why we're doing it. We don't want to lump them all, nor do we want to mistreat them.
Crossroads is a nonprofit agency. I know you mentioned Crossroads with STD testing.
Yeah, STD testing with Crossroads is part of the state health department. That's one of their agencies.
Crossroads is part of the state health department.
At the Jackson Medical Hall.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. All those in favor of?
Yes.
Opposed to? Motion passed. Will clerk please read the order?
Resolved to approve contract with the State of Mississippi Health
that correct?
Mississippi State Department of Health.
Mississippi State Department of Health.
It's TB/HIV rapid testing.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, thank you very much. And we appreciate both you gentlemen for coming and sharing that information with us. Thank you. Mrs. Davis, continue.
Next on the agenda is personnel. However, there are no personnel matters for your consideration. I do request approval to attend the Mississippi Association of Supervisors 83rd Annual Convention scheduled for June 18th to the 21st of this year in Biloxi, Mississippi, and we'll be traveling by county vehicle.
What's the pleasure of the board?
Is that just for you? Does that include any other attorneys?
Yeah, the first one.
And you had board attorney, but travel by private vehicle.
Okay. To make sure we have the proper motion, this is for the county administrator, the public works director, for the board attorney. Okay. All those in favor of?
Excuse me,
Did we take
you're going private vehicle, the other two are going county.
Yes,
Do we get a second, Mr. President?
Yeah, I think we got a second. Is there a second? Okay. Second's been moved and properly second. All those in favor of?
Yes.
Opposed to? Motion passes.
Thank you.
Continue, please.
Next item on the agenda is from Mr. Michael Harrington, Director of Maintenance Department. One item for your consideration.
Here.
If I may say, while Mr. Harrington is approaching the podium, that we would like to request a removal of the second item. This will be brought back to the board in the future, but we're doing some more checking and working with the Department of Health on that matter.
Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Mr. President, Board of Supervisors. I'm standing asking for your approval to advertise for the roof replacement at the Hinds County Department of Human Service building located in Jackson. I'm asking that the advertisement be placed in the Jackson Avenue.
Okay. It's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and properly second. Questions, Mr. Fisher?
Do we own that building?
Yes. That is county, yes.
Any additional questions?
Can I follow up?
Mr. Stokes?
So, Mr. Fisher, can we get a list of all the buildings that we own, please? You know, I know with the insurance thing, they name some that we have covered, but we need a list of all of them we own completely. And can we get a list of those we own with someone, please?
Yes.
Thank you.
Any additional questions? It's been moved and properly second. All those in favor of? Opposed to? Motion passes. Will the clerk please read the order?
Resolved to approve to advertise for specifications for roof replacement at the Hinds County Department of Human Services building located in Jackson, Mississippi.
Okay.
In the Jackson area. Well, that's paper rotation.
Thank you very much. Mrs. Davis, continue.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda, we have items from the Human Capital Development Department, and representing Mr. Williams is Ms. Sharon Sims.
Good morning. The Grants Department is submitting a request to the board to order authorizing the submittal of the Smart Probation, Reducing Prison Population, Saving Money, and Creating Safer Communities grant. The grant is in the amount of $500,000 for a period of 24 months. It is a competitive grant and there is no match required.
What's the pleasure of the board? It's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and properly second. Questions? All those in favor of?
Yes.
Opposed to? Motion passes. Will the clerk please read the order?
Resolved to approve a request to apply for a Smart Probation grant, reducing prison population, saving money, and creating safer communities. The grant amount is $500,000 for a 24-month award period. This is a competitive grant with no match requirement.
Okay. Continue, please.
The second item on the agenda is a request for the board to order an authorization to schedule and advertise for a public hearing regarding the 2012 CDBG Public Facilities Grant application that is to be submitted to the Mississippi Development Authority on behalf of the Eastside Water Association.
Is that just going in the Jackson Advocate, or does it have to go in the Clarion Ledger?
It can just go in the Jackson Advocate.
Okay. What's the pleasure of the board? It's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and properly second. Mr. Fisher?
Can you explain that
a little bit? What are we trying to do there?
The Eastside Water Association had to have a pass-through in order to apply for this grant. The state has been allotted $5 million in public facilities funds to apply for. So basically, we're just a pass-through. But for a CDBG grant to be applied for, there are certain requirements that have to be met in reference to notifying the public of what's going on with the funding, and it has to be done within a certain period of time. It can't be done. It can't be done less than 7 days out of when the application is going to be submitted, and no more than 14 days of when the application is going to be submitted, which is why there's a time factor here. And we just have to get the board's approval to go ahead and make that advertisement so that anyone who has anything to say in reference to from the public will have the opportunity to say it at that hearing.
As a follow-up, where is the Eastside Water Association and what is the county's liability, worst case scenario?
The county has no liability. It's just a pass-through. They just need a representative. And I'm not really familiar with the physical location of the Eastside Water. Terry.
Okay.
Okay, Mr. Stokes.
Thank you. If they receive this grant, what the money's going to be used for?
That I'm not handling this grant. We actually are not applying for the grant. As I stated, the county is just a pass-through. Mr. James Curtis is doing all of their application process, and he just goes through our office. So I'm not really sure about the specifics of what they'll be using it on, but I'd be more than happy to get that information forwarded to your office.
Okay, now, if we're the pass-through, that doesn't mean the money coming to us, right?
Just in name only.
That's our responsibility. If this comes to us and we give it to them, we have to know what they're going to do with this money.
I'm not saying that we don't know. Mr. Williams is actually working on this grant.
You know what they're going to do.
If I may, I can give a little information on those grants, those block grants. And when you talk about those water associations, those monies are specifically earmarked to their water association as far as upgrading their facilities on their water.
In the future, could you have to come and tell us so we don't have to guess as to what they plan to do? How much are we looking at? How much are we talking about?
They're applying for $500,000.
$500,000. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? All right, thank you very much. Mrs. Davis, continue.
You didn't have a vote.
All those in favor of? Opposed to?
No.
Motion passes. Will clerk please read the order?
Resolved to approve an order to schedule and advertise a public hearing regarding the 2012 CDBG Public Facilities Grant application to the Mississippi Development Authority on behalf of the Eastside Water Association.
Okay, Mrs. Davis, continue.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is purchasing department. However, there are no items for consideration.
Purchasing, Mr. President, the purchasing director had a conference, and he gave us some information. I just want to say on the record, job well done, because anytime, and I'm not saying lawsuits are going to come, but if we have lawsuits, first thing we want to see, are we trained? And these kind of activities is good for the county, it's good for the employees, and it shows the state of Mississippi that we are training employees and we're not intentionally doing anything wrong. So, good job, Mr. Lewis, good job, county administrator. Things like you did the last few days will make this county stand out as being unique. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President.
Okay, thank you. Continue, please.
Next item on the agenda is from our Budget and Finance Coordinator, Ms. Woods.
Good morning, President Graham and members of the board. I would like your approval on the budget amendments for today's meeting. These amendments represent the third quarter allocation for the tax collector, the tax assessor, and the sheriff's department.
Move for approval.
It's been moved. Is there a second? It's been moved and properly second. All those in favor of?
Question, Mr. President.
Question from Mr. Stokes.
Could you give us do you have the numbers?
Yes, sir. I sure do.
and while you're looking them up, in the past quarters, have everyone stayed within that budget? Not over budget?
They have.
Everybody? Do we have any considerably under budget?
We do have, we will send off the quarterly reports this week. We should send the second quarter report out this week. They are slightly under budget in the Sheriff's Department and the tax assessor's budget, not majorly under budget.
It's all right, I get it from you. Thank you.
Would you like the amounts from each?
It's all right, I get it from you.
Okay.
I just didn't get it.
Okay. All right. All those in favor of?
Yes.
Opposed to? Motion passes. Okay. Thank you very much.
Okay. There is 1 minute assertion, however, no board action is required. That concludes the items under county administrator.
Thank you very much. We'll now go to the board attorney. Mrs. Crystal Rothmore.
Mr. President, I have addressed all of my items earlier this meeting, and we do have one item for executive session, but I'm putting forward an acquisition of lands.
Okay. Continue. We'll go to Mr. Paul Freelis, the Public Works Director.
Good morning, Mr. President, other board members. First item will be disregarded. We addressed this previously in February, and the next two items that was addressed earlier in the board meeting. Item number 4, the Mississippi State University Brown Lawn Branch Experiment Station has requested the Public Works Department to provide gravel and grade the roads within their station. Brown Lawn Experiment Station to pay for the clay gravel.
Okay. What's the pleasure of the board? So moved. It's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and properly second. All those in favor of?
Aye.
Opposed to? Motion passes. Will clerk read the order?
Resolved to approve the Mississippi State University Brown Lawn Branch Experiment Station request from Public Works Department to provide gravel and grade roads within the station. The Brown Lawn Experiment Station will pay for the clay gravel.
Okay. Continue, please.
Request approval to submit the local solid waste assistance grant application to the Mississippi Department of Environmental Quality.
What's the pleasure of the board? It's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and properly second. All those in favor of?
Aye.
Opposed to? Motion passes. Will clerk please read the order?
Resolved to approve to submit a grant application to submit the local solid waste assistance grant application to the Mississippi Department of Environmental Quality.
Okay. Continue, please.
Thank you, President.
Okay. We will continue with the Chancery Clerk. Will be City Jean Carr.
Good morning again. For your approval, first I have the orders canceling tax sales, authorizing refunds, reassessing changes to the assessment roll.
So moved. It's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and properly second. All those in favor of?
Yes.
Opposed to? Motion passes.
Next, I have an order approving the addition and deletions of the supplemental roll for the homestead exemptions for the year 2011.
So moved.
It's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and properly second. All those in favor of? Opposed to? Motion passes.
Next, I have the approval for the collateral security agreement with Bank Plus. Girl, can you need more information about that if you need?
Okay.
It is a contract between the bank, Board of Supervisors, and the State Treasurer's Office. The form is designated by the State Treasurer's Office for collateralization in either the the state collateral pool, or for those banks that are not in the collateral pool for collateralizing their funds through the Mississippi State Treasurer's Office.
So moved.
It's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and properly second. All those in favor of?
Yeah.
Opposed to? Motion passes.
I have one more item under other business. I have a 16 section lease assignment, and it's an assignment from Stasha Mecca and Monica Mecca, and they're assigning their lease to company SEHEJ LLC.
So moved. It's been moved and properly second. All those in favor? Opposed to? Motion passes.
Thank you. I have any such that do not require any action on your part.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Stokes?
Before we go into executive session, I received, and I think all of us received a letter concerning the planning department of Hines County. And I know we don't currently have one. The letter was reasonable in terms of